Awakened Radio at awakenradio.net is truly a people-powered radio station. We are self-supported by our host, our staff, and you, our listeners. Thank you so much for joining us at the website and clicking our donate button, which you can find above the chat room, as well as sprinkled throughout several of the pages. Join us at awakenradio.net. Be the difference, walk the difference, live the difference. It is time for a new paradigm, and that is all of us working together as one to create the experiences that we all want to experience. Thank you for your love and support of the Awakened Radio family at awakenedradio.net.
Hello and welcome to Evolutionary Women Radio Show with Pernilla Lillerose, where authentic feminine power is making a difference in the world.
Hello everyone, welcome to our Tuesday morning show called Evolutionary Women Radio. It's wonderful to be here with you all. Welcome. This is Pernilla Lillerose, your host. And as you know, talking about the whole evolution of women specifically is something that's very close to my heart and something that I'm very inspired to share with other women and men, of course. We certainly couldn't do it on our own. But it is time now for women to really step into who we are. And to me, that is stepping into our heart. Stepping into my heart. And sometimes you may wonder, well, what the heck does that mean? Is it the physical heart? And it really is not, and it is that too, because it's not really separate. There is a lot of wisdom in the heart that is connected to our brain. There is a lot of research done actually on the heart that is a place we can go for information and inspiration and knowledge. And it is still quite new for a lot of us. So we are in the process of stepping into our heart, but our heart is a lot more than just a physical heart. It is, we can call it our spiritual heart or our spiritual connection, maybe the doorway to our divine self, our divine essence, our divine inspiration. There's many, many ways of speaking about the heart. And I think the most important part is that we each find our own way to connect with that. And when we do that, we can call it what resonates with us, how we experience it. For some people, the word soul may have a lot of meaning and aliveness. And for other people, that may not mean anything. But the experience that we have when we do connect to our inner essence, heart, soul, spirit, divinity, there is something that's very similar, and it feels like there is a doorway that we go through, and then it's almost like we are in a different world. We're in a different experience. We are in a different way of being. And I would say that a lot of women are beginning to either experience that, either they are looking for that doorway, or they have found the doorway, but they don't know how to get in, or they are halfway in and halfway out. And there might be some who are all the way in and once in a while peek out just to see what it's like here on the outside. So wherever you are right now, it's perfect, because like this radio program is called Evolutionary Women. It is an evolution. It's not just like, something that happens overnight and then we're all there. It's an evolution. It's a movement from one state of being that we are outgrowing now, and we're moving into a whole new way. And that new way is felt and experienced energetically by many, many men and women. And learning to trust that, to trust the language of that energy, to trust the movement inside that is guiding us, that gives us inner direction or an inner impulse. I think that is the challenge that a lot of us are having, to fully step into that. Many years ago, I had a strong, I don't know if it's called an impulse or a message inside of me that said, now it is time to move all the way from your mind into your heart. And I was like, whoa, that sounded so big, because I didn't fully trust my heart all the way. And I still don't. I still go back and forth. I'm in and out, but I'm more and more and more in. And the more I share this with others, the more actually this energy in my heart starts filling itself full as me. So it's really starting to move from that inner movement and sharing the message that a lot of women are doing. And that process is helping us living it more, being it more, embodying it more. And that's what I love to share here with all these wonderful women that are my guests on this radio program. Before I'm going to introduce my guest today, I just want to encourage everyone to connect with us as much or as little as you can. You can go to the chat room and you can share anything with us there. You might have an insight, you might have a question, or you can also call in at 334-649-7204. And when you call in there, you can call in with questions or sharing. And we are very, very happy to connect with you and to talk to you and to simply share this wonderful message. So having said that, I would love to introduce my guest today. It's Jen Tasmin Savage. And Jen is the founder of A Heart-Centered Life, and her website is forwomenwhodoitall.com. I love that. And she's also the founder of the Tending the Heart of a Woman's Heart series. Jen is a master Sufi teacher and healer who is passionate about helping overwhelmed women who give a lot of themselves but not to themselves. And she specializes in helping women remember that there is divine permission to care for themselves and their spiritual connection. And here it goes, without the guilt. It's okay to have that care for yourself and the spiritual connection without the guilt. I love that. I think it's so beautiful. And Jen has been in private practice for over 12 years and has helped hundreds of women heal and come home to themselves. So Jen, welcome, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here, Pernilla. Thank you.
Jen, you seem a little far away. I wonder if you can, there's a way to turn up your volume a little bit. You seem a little...
Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that more clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Try to say hello again. Let me just see if you're here fully.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Now you are here. Great, Jen. Welcome. It's wonderful to have you here. Yes. And also just to share with the listeners that Jen and I, we have been in a mastermind group together for maybe 6 months now. And a lot of the women that I have invited onto my show are actually from this group because we're all doing the same. We have a beautiful message to share and we want to share it with the world, and we don't quite know how to do that because, it's one thing to have a message from the heart, and it's another thing how to bring that into the world where things work a little differently still. So Jen, welcome. And do you want to share a little bit about your message first?
Yeah, I think it can be really summed up by, you said it so beautifully at the beginning, but it's awakening, that call. It's what you're being called to something, called to greatness, it's living with purpose, it's having a mission, however you define that. It's like there is, spirit or God or, the divine is constantly knocking on the door of our hearts. And so my work is really about helping women remember the importance of who they are and answering that question and moving through the world from that place of connection and knowing about who you are is a very different state than the busyness of being the perfect mom or having a job and commuting around and, all the roles we play, the perfect wife and housemaker. And we can get so burnt out when we keep doing and doing and doing, opposed to moving from a place of connection and serving the people in our lives. So I really help women fall back into the arms of the divine and to let go of the need to be perfect or have it figured out or do it themselves, and really start connecting in deeply and making choices from a place of deeper connection. And the purpose of it feels really aligned with, many of us are moms, and so it's what are we teaching our kids? Like what are we contributing really? And I think you said it perfectly. We all have ideas of what we want to do, but showing up in those new ways often proves to be more challenging. So my hope is that my work will bring people in deeply, help them settle in and make different choices for themselves, their self-care, and then that has a ripple effect on how they serve their clients, how they are with their kids, how they are in their marriages. And, one heart at a time, the world begins to change for the better.
That is well said. Very beautiful. And Jen, I know you are a married woman with 2 young boys. So you have a lot to juggle there, and just bringing your message to the world like you are doing now is probably not just so easy when you have such a full home life. So how do you manage all that?
A lot of it comes through surrender. Because I have lots of ideas that I want to implement, and my life dictates a different pace. So I think it's God's way of saying, I know what's best. And I really learned that when I'm working, I need to be working. And when I'm with the kids, I need to just be with the kids. Or when the kids are in bed and it's time to have a conversation with my husband, it's not to do that in front of the computer and not being connected, And so I really work at not doing everything partially, but to do the things I do completely so that I'm less scattered and more focused and actually get more done more effectively. So there's a huge learning curve, and I constantly have to check myself, like my kids pulling at my leg right now, like what's the most important thing? Finish this email or just close the computer and go play with them? So it just every day changes, and it really is a balancing act of really honoring what is the most important thing in front of me and setting some time constraints and restrictions around it.
It's actually a very important point I think you're bringing up here, because you have a very strong spiritual practice as a Sufi master. And what I think is so important when we have these deep spiritual practices is make it very these practices practical in our lives, and not just make it an experience on the cushion and just meditate and pray, but really bring it into every area of our life. And when you talk about it the way you do, I love that distinction to really, it's a moment-to-moment practice, isn't it? And it's a moment-to-moment decision. What is actually most important right now? And I would think, Jen, and this is something you can share a little bit, when you are not fully in touch with the wisdom in your heart or the gut feeling or your intuition or your knowing, whatever we want to call it, it's so easy to go to the mind and do what we think we are supposed to do or what other people do, how we should do it according to blah, blah, blah. So it takes a lot of refining, doesn't it, and a lot of discernment to start trusting your heart every moment.
I totally agree with that. I think, everybody has a different practice, but the practice specific to Sufism, aside from our daily prayers, is a practice called remembrance. And it's just the repetition of the divine name that fills us up with all of the qualities of God. And so you can be driving and do remembrance, or you can be listening to a crying baby and do remembrance, or, so that practice for me, when I am disconnected especially, is my anchor back in. And I know that's different for every woman or man, depending on what their spiritual tradition is and what their practices are. But I have learned, I'm in a place now where instead of disconnecting when the fire comes, when it's difficult or stress is happening, or, instead of falling into those patterns, it's like I can really embrace the challenge of, what I call the witching hour. From like 3:30 to 5, my kids are a wreck and they're tired and dinner needs to be made and daddy's not home yet. And, it's like those hours are so difficult. And I've learned, instead of getting myself worked up and stressed out about it, that it's like, okay, let's shift what we're doing and get outside, or, I'll just rearrange the needs of the dynamic based on what's needed in the moment. But it's that practice of remembrance that, for me, really gives me the connection and the anchor to know what the right next step is. Otherwise, I can get frantic and anxious, and then I start getting angry, and I yell at them because they're making too much noise, and, that's not serving anyone. So I try and use the practice of remembrance just in those moments to bring me back. And of course, I'm not perfect at it, and it takes it's a spiritual practice for a reason. I practice it all the time.
Yeah, there is a reason it's called a practice, isn't
Right.
it? It's not like a one-shot deal and then it's over. It's a lifelong practice.
No, it doesn't happen like that.
We wish sometimes, right?
I do.
So, Jen, normally I start out with a question that I actually didn't start out with yet. So I want to just ask you the question that I'm sure you were not like this always. Were you born into a Sufi path when you grew up, or did you go through some challenges that actually helped you become who you are and bringing the message to the women that you do today? Would you like to share a little bit about how you got there today or here?
Yeah, I would love to. It's a great question. I've always had a really high truth radar, which I think many kids do, or many people do. And I lived in an environment that was violent, with a lot of domestic violence and addiction and mental illness. And the truth that was in front of me just never felt right to me. And through, my own addictive process, I started substance abuse when I was 14. And somehow, by the grace of God, by the time I was 17, I'd already started my recovery process. So that was a very first step for me in kind of exploring what I'd grown up around and what was familiar and what was known, opposed to the possibility of something else. And I then went on to move to California and got my little red car and drove, after graduating from high school, drove to California in search of the sun and myself, which I didn't know at the time that was what was happening. But I was introduced to the book The Tao of Pooh and Dan Millman's Spiritual Warrior book. And it just, all of a sudden, my life made sense. Like, there are people out there who think like I do, who understand the world like I do. And it sort of started my spiritual process. And I ended up in massage school, which was really like a deeper level of healing, and exposed me to Carolyn Mace and Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer and all of these really great teachers that I just devoured. I studied with and devoured the teachings of, and I was always seeking and searching. And then a friend of mine invited me to a talk. She said, there's a guy coming in from Jerusalem. He's a master healer. I think, is really resonant with sort of your path, and you should come meet him. And so I went to this event, and at the time I was pretty rough around the edges. I had spiked hair, and, I was wearing my Doc Martens and my cutoff shirt, and was still very masculine and edgy, and hadn't quite really embraced my heart at all at that point. And I walked into this room, and there was this man who was sitting at the front of the room giving these teachings, and it turns out he is now my sheikh. But I was sitting in the room, and he asked if anyone wanted to take hand with him and become his student. And this voice, as clear and quiet and profound as any I think I'd ever experienced up until that point, came to me and just said, "Don't worry about being a Sufi. Know you're giving your hand to God." And my body literally lifted up, and I was kneeling in front of him, and I took the promise and have sort of been finding my way as a Sufi ever since.
Wow, that gives me the chills. What a beautiful, beautiful story. Wow, that really touches me, Jen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is another element which I would love to share because it's really connected to my spiritual awakening process, and that is that in my 20s, I lost my partner to suicide. And when it was his birthday, which was almost 6 months after after his death. And I was at our house wondering, like, how in the heck am I going to celebrate this, like, first milestone without him? And his spirit visited me and called me on a journey all the way up to a mountain that is out in the Columbia Gorge where I live in Portland. And I had this profound spiritual awakening process. It was a day-long journey that ended with me on my knees, praying to God and giving thanks for this beautiful experience I just had. And that same quiet voice that I experienced before taking hand with my sheikh came to me and said, "Thank yourself for showing up for the journey, because you chose to be here. You chose to participate even on a day that was really difficult." And so it's those two things, just the deep trust that, my heart is being called, it's like I can't ignore it, even when I don't answer fully, but that there's really guidance from the other side that directs our lives, and every detail, even in the most painful, excruciating experiences, is choreographed for our purpose and our awakening, and that there are jewels inside of everything that is here for the service of our hearts.
That's beautiful. Wow. You know what it makes me think of is that when apparently your ears and your heart were tuned in to hearing that. And I know there are so many people where that is not the case. The only thing that they're basically tuned into is their mind. And that does not give us these great answers like you got. And how do you help people who come to you who are not tuned in, their ears are not tuned into their heart or to the divine? How do they start in that direction?
It's a beautiful question. I actually have a signature system that I created, and it's the acronym, is hearts. And so the E is actually for ears, and I invite them to really be present to what they're listening to. And I teach them the difference between the voice of the divine, the voice of the self, which often is the mind chatter, and then the influence of the darkness or the pain that we feel. And that has a very different quality to it. So part of my work is helping really anchor them through remembrance to connecting with their heart and starting to, get into the flow of that. Even if they don't feel anything, something still happens when you do the practice. And then it's really helping them tease out, who they are underneath the veils or story that they tell themselves. So we start awakening the jewel, really those divine qualities that are unique and specific to them. But then we spend a lot of time looking at the stories and the voices the voices of pain and our ego are much, much louder than the voices of the divine. So I help them kind of tease those out and start discerning it as a first step. And then we work on turning away from the voices of the darkness or the pain or the ego in its service to itself or the fear that runs, so that they can start living more authentically and with trust and connected to that small whispering in their heart.
So it's really a small step-by-step process. It actually reminds me a little bit of, or actually very much of the work that I do myself, since I'm a Hakomi practitioner, and it's very much about learning to listen to those different parts of ourselves also. And we talk about, it's like this background noise. It's like a radio station that's just going all day long that we're listening to, but we're not really listening to it. But you become aware when you stop and start paying attention. You start becoming aware of what this underlying nagging radio station is trying to communicate to you all day long, and learning to discern. That's the process for all of this. I think that's the learning to see where we have been identified with, and then slowly disidentifying, and then finding out, well, what can I listen to then? And then you start listening to a much subtler energy or voice or sensation. I would say it's probably different for everyone what we get in touch with, what specific sense we experience that as. But just a step-by-step process of learning to distinguish and discern. And it's a big, it feels like that's really the process that we're all on, huh?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about the evolutionary piece you were speaking to earlier. It's like this is our life journey, right? Awakening to who we are and resting in the arms of the divine, or connecting to truth. And it takes, like, the learning never stops, That's what I love the model of Sufism is there's 28 stations of the heart. And our journey of our life is just transitioning through each of those and getting more and more in touch with that place in our secret, which is the deepest kind of unity or oneness with God. And at the outermost layers where, it's the self and our self needs, and then we move through the layers of the self into the layers of the heart, through the layers of the soul, and into the layers of the secret, all the way into the unity. So that I think that's part of why this path resonated so much with me, because it gave me a roadmap to do exactly what we're talking about.
And that's really important, isn't it? Especially when you start out, but even as you keep going, because there needs to be something you need to know that you can trust that. And if somebody has walked that path before you, like your sheikh has, that's really good to somebody you actually trust, right? With your heart, you just know that, okay, this resonates with me. And again, Jen, I want to say you already had that connection because you knew you could trust it, and it came as a very clear message to you. So in that way, I think you were a little ahead of the game in one way or another, where you actually got that message clearly and you trusted it. And luckily so, because now you're helping a lot of people because of that.
Yeah, I feel sort of destined to that I've always had that awareness inside of me, and I've just been spending my life sort of finding the right teachers or the right people to help me realize it. And then the next step in the hero's journey, which is what that journey up to the top of the mountain was for me, it's you then take what you've learned out into the world and serve the hearts of the people who need it. And I feel like I'm right on the cusp. Like, that's my next chapter.
And what would that look like?
Well, I think it's through my teaching and my healing and my practice that, I'm working on with you and Anastasia's program. It's really writing the book that I've known I was going to write for 20 years, and really taking those action steps now that I've kind of matured into who I am and what my purpose is, and really giving back now. It just feels like that's what time it is.
Yeah. It's kind of a natural part of the process, isn't it? I would say you can't help it if that's not a movement in somebody. It's just because it's not there. You can't force that or make that happen or think it's supposed to be there. It's something you can't really help. It's just running the show is pushing you on, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And it's the the realization of the journey, right? And then the wisdom that you get from those experiences you've had, and so many people who don't have the attunement or the, like you said, the hearing. It's like to plant those seeds of love and support them on their journey of awakening, because I think more and more people are waking up and questioning and looking for guidance. And
yeah. Jen, we need to go on a little here now. So any listeners, please call in, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Awakened Radio, your listener-supported online global radio station where we all come together to share the love and the energy of change that we know ourselves to be. Thank you so much for clicking on our love gift and donate buttons throughout the website. Your support is very appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing and making real your love and your appreciation for what all the hosts at Awakened Radio are doing. This is Donna Devane, station owner, saying we really appreciate your help. You know you want to host a show. You know you've got a message. You know your message needs to be heard by the world. What's holding you back? You don't want to mess with all those gadgets. You don't want to bother with promotion and producing and archives and, well, I've got the answer for you. At awakenradio.net, you show up, you host your show. You have someone that produces it for you, that helps you to promote it to the world and get your word out. You also have it listed in the archives and available as a free download on the website, as an archive source, and most importantly, it's available as a free download and subscription through iTunes. So what's holding you back? Come on, get your message out to the world. You have something important to say. Awakened Radio wants to help you say it. Visit awakenradio.net today. Click on the link on the left-hand side that says host a show, or add Awakened Radio to your Skype contact and send Donna Devane a message. She'll be more than happy to talk with you about doing your very own show. AwakenedRadio.net. We are occupying the airwaves and changing the world. Join us. We're more than an online radio station. We are a family focused on making life better forever.
Hello and welcome to Evolutionary Women Radio Show with Pernilla Lillerose, where authentic feminine power is making a difference in the world. Invite anyone who's interested to call in, and I want to give you the number, which is 334-649-7204. So please call in and talk with us and share anything and ask any questions. We would love to hear from you. There is something that really touches me. I know why I'm doing this radio broadcast every week. Like talking with Jen today, I notice I'm just deeply touched, having these kind of conversations with other women. I feel very inspired and very touched by it, and it gives me hope. There are a lot of women who are sharing these same deep messages with their own flavor. And I just want to say, Jen, I'm very touched by what you're saying. I've always been very touched by Sufism. I have read books and I've gone to different meetings, but it's not been one that I have totally dived into. But what you're sharing here is just deeply touching, and it reminds me of many years ago when I was reading more into Sufism. They talked about the longing, and the longing has, in a way, been my best friend forever, because my experience, the longing is God's way to move me in a direction back home. And I think what a lot of us have done in the past, I certainly did, I projected whatever I was longing for, I would project it out into the world and think I would find the solution that I was longing for, or the experience out there. And then one time in some deep meditation that I did, I realized that the longing
suddenly I was back in my heart, and I experienced the longing for exactly what it is. Instead of projecting it out, I experienced longing, period, in my heart, and it was the longing for myself, the longing for the love that I was. Suddenly it was the same thing. It was just me, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I would love for you to talk a little bit about the longing, since I know it's a big part of Sufism. But before that, Jen, please let people know how they can get hold of you if they want to connect with you, maybe a website or something like that.
Sure, thank you. My website is www.forwomenwhodoitall.com. And my email address is JENNTASNIM@gmail.com. That's Jen with two N's, Tasneem@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Everybody can connect with you, and we'll say it one more time towards the end of this broadcast. So, Jen, the longing, does that resonate?
It's like the same language. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that even as a small child, I had that calling or longing that something deep inside of me knew that the circumstances around me weren't the end of what was possible, that there was something more. And in Sufism, it's the longing of being in the unity or connected to the beloved with a capital B, which is God, and really returning to that ecstatic state of return, like the drop of water that returns to the ocean and realizes it was never alone. So that language is very much connected to Sufism, and it's really, I think, the seed that, the divine or God plants in our hearts, which kind of keeps us going and moving towards truth and asking questions and really remembering who we are, because it's not who we think or who the world, what the world quantifies as being right or good. Like, none of that stuff really matters. So I think that longing is what connects us to what's real and pure and right, and what God wants us to know about ourselves and the love that's available to us.
Beautiful. I would like you to just share whatever you want, Jen. I'm just so enjoying taking in your energy and your love. So is there anything from Sufism or your life that you would like to share right now that we can all enjoy?
Oh, that's putting me on the spot a little bit there. My teacher was just here last weekend, and I received a really deep gift from him. And what I love about Sufism is it's not something that your mind gets or understands. It's a transmission of light that happens, which you're feeling. It's what changes your heart and brings you in deeper connection with your source and the love that flows through everything. And he was doing a teaching about Mariam and Jesus this weekend, just talking about the love of the Divine Mother, which felt so perfect and beautiful, especially as I'm connected to this group of businesswomen, and the work I do is really helping women heal kind of global consciousness and our personal stories about what it means to be a woman, and how there are so many breaks and so much wounding in that. And the transmission he gave about the teaching of Mariam or Mary is just how much love, like the Divine Mother and the love. And I was drinking in, like, throughout his teaching. And that's what I feel in my heart right now. It's like, this is the energy that I want to share with the world, so that we can really heal the places in us that believe we're less than because we're female, or that we can't make as much money in our businesses because of the male-dominated world that surrounds us. And all of these very small, that we're the weaker sex, which is, such deep, deep, deep wounding in that, because without women, there's this great saying in Sufism that a man is a man and a woman is a village. And, without women, the world wouldn't exist. And so to help women, not from an egoic, or a wounded place, but standing in the power of the divine love and what their hearts carry and the strength that is within us, and how our connection to the divine, and how we can serve the hearts of the men in the world so that they can really be who God created them to be, and we can all find our right place. And doing that through the love of the Divine Mother and the healing that comes from Source. That's really what's in my heart right now, because it's the teaching that I was just at a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I can really feel it. My whole body is being just soft and open and touched by what you're sharing. And of course, it's because it's so close to my own heart.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that's maybe why you chose to work with women, knowing how important it is to bring woman back to her natural state in this expression of life.
Well, it's been an interesting part of my journey. Like, I grew up with a dad who wanted a son, and he loved me, but I think I was the son he never had. And I carried very deeply a belief, well into my 30s, that if I had been born a boy, that I would be better loved, or that I could somehow be better than I was. And I was in a teaching with my teacher when that picture, we talk about how our life experiences create pictures that get stored in that heart space you were speaking about. And then it's from those experiences or beliefs that we tell our story, and that determines who we show up as in the world. And I just kind of snuck in the teaching a little bit late because I'd been volunteering in the kitchen, and just kind of knelt my head down. And, he speaks Arabic, and sometimes the translation is really hard to hear. And I didn't even really know what the teaching was about. But as I bowed my heart to him and entered into the energy of the room, that picture that if I had been born a boy just lifted out of my heart and went away. And it was moments later that I was just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And it was the beginning of a really deep transformational healing that happened for me. In the last probably 6 years, I've been stepping into what does being a woman really mean? And obviously having 2 kids has helped with that. But I still am very driven and masculine in a lot of ways. And so just finding that balance and learning how to really rest in that deep, powerful, connected, intuitive space, which is the feminine. It's my journey. And so it makes sense for me to be, for women to either be attracted to me, or to me to be attracted to women who really struggle with, wearing the pants in the relationship and always being the one in charge, or having control, or really being afraid to rest or trust the masculine. And so a lot of the people that I find are drawn to my work, or the work that I do, or people that I'm drawn to learning from, carry those kinds of messages.
Yeah, I think you're just one example of that, and that picture that just left you there, that you were, you should have been a boy. I think it's actually really represents the whole collective about the feminine. It's as if we should all have been born like boys, because then we would fit into this society, which is really not, quote unquote, meant for women. It's not really natural for us. And I was with a spiritual teacher many years ago in Australia. His name was Barry Long. He passed away many years ago, but he really talked about that women, that that society is created by men for men, and if women are trying to fit in, but the only way we can fit in is by changing ourselves and becoming more like a man. So it's no wonder that we are all trying to find out, well, what does it really mean to be a woman? And I don't have the answer, but as I keep that question open and listen inside, I get more and more in tune with that and resonate with that, and mostly trust that what comes. And I think having the support from other women, which is one of the reasons I have this Evolutionary Women Radio, because I think we need each other's support to keep moving forward and say, yeah, this is right. This resonates with the feminine. Let's take the next step together, not on our own, isolated, trying to figure it out on our own. So I think you're really speaking to that, and that whole picture that left. It left the collective. I think I know we all benefit when one of us lets go of, some of the energy from the old patriarchic world. We all benefit.
I agree, and I think that's, sometimes it can feel really overwhelming, and we can sometimes think like, what can I possibly do to make a difference, and we look around us and see so much destruction and negativity, but the truth is, like, you matter. Each one of us matters, and if we even turn our hearts 1 degree closer to love, over a course of time, that's a huge amount of love that has access to the world and to the people in it. And I really believe that the global consciousness and what's inside of me is a reflection of that. I had a very interesting experience when I was watching NPR or listening to NPR in the car a couple of months ago now. And I was listening to a gentleman who had been a neo-Nazi, and he was talking about the hate and the way that there's a huge uprising of kids being recruited through hate music, and that the neo-Nazi movement is really growing right now. And I just started sobbing, and I realized that I spend my day pretending not to feel angry or hatred because I want to be good and right and spiritual, and I shouldn't have those inclinations. And, but every time I deny myself those moments of expressing and moving it through my body, I contribute to that kid who then has to be the voice for it.
Yeah.
And it was such a powerful teaching, and I realized that it's just like honoring the love. If we can honor the parts of us we don't want to honor and bring love to them, that's one more shift that makes a huge difference in the global consciousness. And I completely agree with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I hear how touched you are by that interaction you had. As women, I think it's very natural that we are carrying or have been carrying a lot of anger and rage because our naturalness has been suppressed, and it's not to blame. I'm not blaming anybody. To me,
right.
It's the evolution of how it was and what we're changing into, but to honor that there is anger and there is rage in us as women, and as long as we suppress it, I think there's a lot of these diseases that we experience in our body, whatever we can call them. It's just suppressed energy that gets stuck and shows up in some kind of a form or name or whatever, medical name. And if we can just own the fact that, yeah, I am angry because I have not been able to fully be myself, not to project it out or blame, but just own it, and that energy can actually help transform us to say, well, I want to use this energy and now become who I am, so it's more constructive. But suppressing it, ooh, no, it doesn't work. But boy, have we all done that. Ooh.
Well, and the truth is, suppressing it might mean you don't feel those things, but it also means you can't step into your greatness because you then have to keep suppressing the power and the brilliance. And that is where I think a lot of women are stuck. It's like it's somehow we have to unearth. And it's not, I had a recent experience where I really tuned into the rage and anger, like you said, that I carry. It's like for millennia of women. It's not just mine, and it was really freeing to, like, instead of internalizing and thinking, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Why do I feel so angry? It was like, wow, I am deeply attuned to the feminine and the wounding and the love that so wants to enter into those spaces that I'm not willing to let it enter into. And so giving and bringing and being willing to be present with what's uncomfortable then allows, the purification process or the healing to happen so that love can return And in doing that, I then step up my game in my business. I have more to offer. I have more energy, less body. My body hurts less, So I think you're really on to something with that.
Yesterday, I teach meditation here in town, and yesterday after the class, there was this young student. She came, and, it's a beginning class, and she was asking me about certain things, emotions, because we were just working with the mind right now and starting realizing that we are not our thoughts. That's just one of the steps how I teach it. And she had these emotions, and she was actually trying to, quote unquote, meditate herself away from the anger, right. And she wanted me to help her how to do that. It was so sweet. It was so innocent because we want to love, right? And we want to do the right thing. And I just really helped her see that, her anger is probably here for a reason, that there might be something in your life that's not working, and your body's trying to communicate that with you. And then of course she started crying a little bit because immediately she knew what it was, what situation in her life was not right. And now she knew, so the anger was not a bad thing to meditate yourself away from. But boy, I've done that in the past, If I can get
we don't want to be uncomfortable, we don't want to have to go into those uncomfortable feelings. And the truth is, anger is just a mask for grief or fear or sadness, or, anger is easy to feel. It's much more vulnerable to have to feel the grief or the sadness or the loss or what's underneath the anger. So, just being present to what's in front of us, and then peeling the layers back and just continuing to say yes until we get to that seed of truth, which is really where we set ourselves free.
Yeah. Beautiful. Jen, why don't you just share with the listeners again how they can get hold of you if they want more of your work?
My website is www.forwomenwhodoitall.com, and I get asked all the time, is that for, like the number 4? It's like, no, it's for you, F-O-R. So just to clarify that. And then my email address, if you want to reach out personally, I love getting emails, JENNTASNIM@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you. And I think you also have something you can share with them. So, but just by going to either your website, or maybe I'll just say you can just go to evolutionarywomenradio.com, and there you will find Jen's little bio, and at the bottom there is a link you can click on to receive a little bit of her information and to learn more about what she does. And I also just want to share, if you want to get to connect more with the work that I do, you can find me on my website at LillaRose.com, spelled LILLAROSE.com. So Jen, we have about 5 more minutes left, and I wonder if there's any takeaways or anything you would like to share with the women that will be helpful for them to get more connected with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is, we talked a lot about the longing or the call. It's just, I would encourage women who maybe even aren't aware that it's there, or those who know it's there and aren't listening, just to take one small step towards saying yes to that longing. And it might be just allowing those tears to flow. It might be feeling anger. It might be calling up an old friend, whatever that is, whatever that truth, whatever that message is, to just give yourselves permission and know that the divine is there waiting and knocking on your door and giving the love, even if the circumstances of your life don't feel that. And then another is a quote that says, "You think you're a small star when in fact you contain the entire universe." And that for me, just, in those moments of smallness or isolation or feeling like I'm alone, it just brings me back to, we are all part of this global consciousness, and that, each moment we say yes to the love or have these, engage in these conversations, something shifts, and being a part of that is a really beautiful thing. So however you can do that in your life, whatever that next small yes you can say is, to just say it.
Lovely. Yeah. Yeah, saying yes to yourself is saying yes to your feelings, your fears, your sadness, your anger, and just allowing it to be experienced so a deeper truth can unfold, huh?
Right, and honoring that thing you're supposed to be doing that you don't make time for, because somebody else's needs are always important, or because there's so much other stuff that, we deem more important and have to, I'll do this other thing when, it's like stop the other stuff and do the thing that is going to serve you and move you forward and get you unstuck. Just giving yourself that permission, just that small space that belongs to you. Because the truth is God needs to use you in the world, He wants you to serve and be awakened and more deeply connected to the love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think really when you say, the way you say it again, I just love the connection you keep bringing back to the divine, whatever we call it. It's just, it feels so alive. And the more we can do that, of course, the more connected we will be ongoing. And having somebody remind us of that, whether it's a book or a friend or a circle of women or a circle of men, a teacher, just that reminder that is very sincere and heartfelt. I think we can all feel a transmission right in that. And that is really what it's meant. It's not just a mental concept. It's an actual experience that's alive and feels so good.
I'm smiling over here. I'm so happy that you feel it. And, and you're right, especially when two or more people gather. I think it says that in the Bible, like when people of like mind commune, like the level of energy raises, or, the love has more power, whatever that teaching is, it's true, and it can start with you just saying yes to yourself, which then by osmosis, I see it in my work all the time. If I'm working with a woman who's having a really difficult marriage, like her husband starts changing, like she's not even talking to him about what she's doing with me, but his heart begins to change, or the relationship with her kids begin to change, and just honoring the importance of just saying yes to that small thing inside of you will really have a profound effect.
Beautiful. And you know what it also reminds me of right now, Jen, is that, saying yes to yourself, that little seed that's wanting to start sprouting, saying yes to yourself is not selfish in the way we see it.
Right.
You say selfish with a capital S, and resisting or ignoring this inner voice, that is to me more selfish with a small s. So dear women, all the listeners on this call, it's not selfish to listen to yourself. It's actually our divine calling.
And I'll just add to that, because I just wrote, my sales page has like why being selfish is the most important thing you can do to serve yourself, your heart, and your family.
Absolutely.
It's like it's the biggest gift you can give the people in your life and yourself, like taking that time to really know who you are and what the divine wants from you, and aligning your life with that, and not the story that continues to play out and bring you pain and limitation. It's like that's where the real juice is in life, and that's where things really start shifting.
Absolutely. Wow, Jen, the time has gone so fast, and that's how it goes when I talk with these wonderful women that are so, I just so resonate with your message, and it just is so inspiring. So it's been an absolute pleasure to spend this hour with you. I've really enjoyed it, and I could go on for another hour.
Well, I appreciate it too, and I really love the connection, and maybe we can do it again a couple months down the road. Keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. It's certainly possible, and I'm very open to that. So thank you so much, my friends. It's been lovely.
Thank you, Pernilla.
And thank you to all the listeners who's been here, and always thank you to our wonderful